Welcome to Uncharted, your Sidekick for Life podcast. I'm Natalie Payton, joined by Dan Dillard and Dr. Leon Vanstone for another exciting episode. Today, we have a very influential guest, Thomas Miranda, a technologist, venture capitalist, and community servant who started his first tech venture in high school. Thomas has been a major influence in Silicon Valley and beyond. Stay tuned as we discuss tech innovation and explore Thomas's fascinating journey and passion for giving back to the community. Our Gen Z contributors interviewed by Anais Schmidt and myself include Trevor, who talks about his experience adjusting to college life with his newfound free time, Samarth, who presents us with the pervasiveness of AI, and Christian, who tells us what he would ask a mentor if he had one. Let's have a listen.
Welcome to episode 5. I'm excited to have a new guest mentor on board.
Yes.
Thomas Miranda. So we'll learn a little bit about Thomas here in a second, but want to introduce yourself, Natalie?
Yes. Hey, everybody. I'm Natalie. I am an actor and podcast person, Natalie.
That never gets old. Hey, everyone. I'm Dr. Leon Vanstone, rocket scientist, storyteller, and entrepreneur, and co-founder of Founding Up.
Nice. Dan Dillard and co-founder of Founding Up and media entrepreneur. So we'll go with that. And but I'm more interested in learning about Thomas.
Wow. Thomas, technologist and venture capitalist, and community servant.
Tell us more about that, because I we've all gone into our history in the last few episodes, but kind of want to learn a little about your background and how you got started and that kind of stuff.
Sure. How much time do we have?
Yeah.
I'll try to.
When I was 5.
More.
Do you remember the movie Goonies?
Oh, yeah.
So remember Captain Chunk is like, when I was 5.
Yeah. I remember that. I remember. I'll try to make it, condense it. Given the relevance of what we're doing here, I started my first tech venture in high school. It was really a hobby. It was a tech hobby, building computers, programming, doing some weird things, odd and ends, which led me to bulletin boards and kind of early hacking and all that kind of stuff. But it was innocent hacking, as I say. But it taught me a lot about
breaking the government
White
science.
I don't think so.
No comment.
Right.
No
Not that I'll
comment.
admit.
I can't remember. No, but really what happened is the platform allowed me to really develop and hone in on critical thinking and problem solving skills, because I spent endless nights, endless days figuring out how to do things, basic things that today are basic. Back then they were not.
Right.
They required cards and upgrades and modifying with cables and just so many things, hobbyists. But the biggest thing that, aside from, building those kind of critical thinking and problem solving skills very early, is I learned just about all there was to learn about hardware and software architecture before graduating high school.
Wow.
And I learned it as an autodidact, right? As on my own. I didn't have a class. No one taught me. It was just like day and night and being really infatuated with. Downside is I was not socially popular. I was not connected to anyone. I was in the corner. I was kind of one of the nerds and the geeks and those kinds of guys. But that was okay, because I stayed out of trouble. Yeah. I didn't get in the wrong clubs and groups. And so that platform provided an opportunity for me to somehow, I thought that I had to be a computer engineer to monetize or capitalize on that experience. I don't know. Someone told me, my parents or someone, just couldn't remember. So I went down that path to get a computer engineering degree, and that's what I did. And it took a very long time, but I did that and then moved out to Silicon Valley, where I started working with the most innovative company at the time. This is in the mid to late 90s. It was HP in Palo Alto.
Right.
Before they bought.
They were quite new then. Yeah, they would have been.
Well, they had been. They're considered. Their garage is considered the birthplace of Silicon Valley, because their calculators, oscilloscopes, and test and measurement equipment's the legacy HP, not the current HP. Right. So it was. I was amazed, right, at the innovation and really the HP way, which I read about, particularly around how people were treated with dignity and respect, right? And they were created, built, and people could build and develop and grow in an environment that would almost seem like utopia. and it was utopia.
Wow.
When I got there, it truly was utopia. So I remember, and this is a time I had job offers from Hughes and Boeing and Allied Signal, Motorola, the NSA, really exotic opportunities. But I picked HP because of their legacy, how they treated engineers and technology. It was kind of an incubator for entrepreneurs who were engineers,
Wow.
right?
That's
Like
cool.
kind of and what I learned from there was the leadership and the management style was utopian. I mean, to this day, people I keep in touch with, I mean, are running Silicon Valley. It's like that powerful, right? And amazing, enlightened human beings. And I've never seen or heard anything like it since. So, okay, I don't know if I had more time or not.
Yeah,
course,
sure,
please.
for sure.
But that parlayed into other roles with Cisco and a little bit with Dell when I moved here to Texas. Actually, Dell first, and then Cisco. And really, what I was aiming to get at from day one was live, breathe, and play in innovation in high growth environments. Learn from the best, learn models, build knowledge. I came from such a upside down deficit kind of environment that all I wanted to do was do the exact opposite. Right. And so I didn't know what that was. I didn't know how to find it, but I knew if I surrounded myself around these environments and cultures and people that I would, approximately get there. Right. And so that's what I did. And it just, year after year, product after product, I found myself launching, working in the middle of billion-dollar product lines, right? From zero to $1 billion+ in revenue a year for these large, companies going, from a small size company to large size companies like with Cisco. And it was so amazing that during the time I actually started a couple of startups, which I don't think I mentioned before, but I did it around 9/11, which was not a good time to start startups.
You would have not know.
Yeah, no, but I was so enterprising and entrepreneur minded and problem solving oriented that I kept seeing solutions in the industry. Like, why isn't this here?
Right.
The first one was literally something called No Time to Shop, which came out designed in detail exactly like Instacart.
Wow.
If you're familiar with Instacart, except 6 years early.
Wow.
No
Right,
time to
yeah.
shop. I love the name.
Yeah, and it was, but as I talked with Randall's and HEB and a couple of other folks, they were not
They
for
weren't
it.
ready. They weren't ready yet.
They were not ready. It was before the smartphone. It was
Right.
before full digital, just so many elements.
You'd need so much digital inventory for
Right.
that to work, right?
Exactly. And but what I learned was stores require, like, most of their sales were by drive-by shoppers that came in for Kleenex but left with 20 other items.
That's me. I go in for two things
Yeah.
and I've spent $300.
Yeah.
Tell me about how you got into community and mentorship, because I think that's a big part of your, like when we were having, our breakfast or lunch, that was something that really called.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much. Sometimes I when I'm comfortable, I say a lot. So I may have already told you a lot. If I'm not comfortable, I talk in bits and bytes.
Right.
So it was around the year 2006, and I was working at Cisco, and we were in the design center for mid-range and enterprise switches, which are, $5 billion a year business. It's a bread and butter of the company at the time. And the management team started to look at outsourcing the designs of the lower end switches to Shanghai. And so we were part of a business unit of a Tiger team that was hiring and building CRDC, Shanghai Research and Development, Cisco Shanghai Research and Development Facility. And going through that process, seeing 37,000 resumes come in. And did I already share this story?
Like personally?
Well, no. I mean, our team received
Right.
37,000 through the machine of hiring, and we were in the review team. We ended up hiring 27 engineers for the Shanghai
37,000.
complex. These are all 4.0 Shanghai engineers, computer scientists, the top of the top of the top. And, that really opened my eyes to, okay, what am I doing with my life? I mean, obviously it's a 1.5 billion person economy. It's way bigger than the US. So numbers alone, you're going to have like 5 times or 10 times the graduates alone. And I started looking at all those elements from this country to that country and different billion person economies. You know, I have a similar story with India as well. And it really sparked a fire in me, and it made me realize that I don't see myself riding out this role, this world, just getting a paycheck, getting bonuses, getting stock options, you know, really crushing it, doing some amazing things and innovation at the cutting edge of the cutting edge because of where I grew up, how I grew up, the environment I grew up in. And you know, I mentioned there was a big deficit, or there was you know, really big challenges. I ignored a lot of the you know, critical circumstances by which I grew up in lieu of succeeding and aspiring higher, and didn't work on those things till later, which came out to be partially, you know, mental illness, right around like, damn, I should have validated this. I should have talked about these things. I should have, you know, like those little, maybe not mental illness, but maybe, you know, being better,
Right.
being a better person.
Self-reflection.
Yeah, self-reflection, introspection, all that. And I started charting a plan to do something more meaningful, that also I felt that no one, and I mean no one, and very relative to relevant to what we're doing here, no one in my community, from my background, I grew up in the south side of San Antonio, which what used to look like east side of Austin 20 years ago, you know, like this whole area was a different world. I grew up in a place like that, and it, you know, danger, you know, drugs, bad influences, you name it, pick your poison, they were all there. And I felt like no one in my community, in my circles, were even close to the world that I went to, right?
Right.
The environment I went to. I'm like,
Feel like a fish out of water.
oh man, I mean, way out of water, a fish out of water on a different planet, like, you know, literally way far. And I started becoming more and more troubled about that. So I hired a personal coach who I thought was more of an executive coach, and she was going to help me, you know, do a few things, get a promotion. I was like all jazzed up. I know what I want to do. Right. Well, she turned out to be a life coach,
Right.
and she really helped me orient all my spaghetti wires all over the
Right.
place. Right. And it just blew me away because it really allowed me to think about purpose and self. And she told me, you know, I had cognitive dissonance around doing one thing but saying another thing, right? Like, what's going on? Like, why are you going after this amazing career doing all these? I mean, I wanted to be CEO of Cisco. Like, how dare I? That's crazy. I mean, who would want to do that? Just because I something in me, you know, saw that spark and that fire, but I had a stronger feeling about my community and others as well.
And that led you to some of the things that you've also worked with Hispanic chain, like some of the. Tell me just a little bit about the organizations you worked with.
Yeah. So one of the first organizations was called HITA, was a Hispanic Technology Institute of Austin, which is it was a committee of the Hispanic Chamber. And I got involved in there and said, this is a great incubator. This is like the early tech incubator, stage 0 of, you know, multi-stage that I saw. And so we started building capabilities around that and growing that a little bit. And it got so big and meaningful that it turned out to separate from the chamber. But then the chamber asked me to be involved with them and help their board. And so I joined the chamber's board, and because I saw the mission and the purpose, and I, being the builder and the strategist that I was out of a corporate setting, that I had developed skill sets and all, I was so inundated or eager, to be involved in the community and be equitable and just and find out where the needs are. But I think my thinking scared a lot of people,
right? Because
I saw like 48 dimensions of stuff, right?
When you come back from this other background, this is really technical. What about let's just touch on, then we'll jump into the questions. Let's touch on, you also got involved with a Texas workforce. Tell me how that.
So Texas Workforce Solutions. So I've been pretty passionate about workforce education and commerce and like Hispanic Chamber organizations. And so because of that, I was asked about 7 or 8 years ago to consider being the representative for the Hispanic Chamber into the Workforce Solutions board. And you have to, you know, it's a process. The governor and the mayor, I think, have to ratify you. And that took a few months to go through. But but it was totally like the place I wanted to be involved in. It at that time it was a little more reactive in terms of being a resource center for those who were transitioning from one job to another. But through activity that I've worked with and other great board members and growing group of members, it became more programmatic over the last several years to be a little bit more intentional around internships and apprenticeships. And, I led one of the first committees to form that and to build that with some of the local employers, and seeing what happened in the last 12 years where everyone came from other places
Right.
into Austin. It's like, boy, we should have done this like 20 years ago, right? Like this model to align local resources to local jobs to regional opportunities. And so that's really kind of what we've been doing there.
Awesome. And now you know why we invited you on the show.
No, I don't. No, no, I have no idea. No.
Well, as you know, the format is we've been out collecting some, doing some correspondent work. So both Anais and Natalie have been out talking to people, and Leon's been out talking to some students that, and really just kind of the whole purpose of the show is what keeps them up at night, what bugs them, like how can mentorship help them? And so we go out and get some of these clips. We'll play some today, and kind of collectively come up with some thoughts around how we would have answered these questions. So let's start with the first one.
And how was it for you, the transition from moving from your family to college and finding your own independence?
It was a little jarring. I feel like a lot of the aspects of the independence came with the freedom of, I don't want to say the freedom of choice, but more the freedom of time in terms of commitments. I mean, especially now that I wasn't necessarily home, I suddenly had a lot more weekends free. And I feel like that gain in time can be kind of jarring, because if you grow up somewhere where you don't necessarily have a lot of time, I mean, I did have a lot of time, but if you're always on a schedule and you're suddenly given freedom, you're kind of sitting there dumbfounded with what to do with it, right? You don't
Yeah.
really like what you should be doing with this time you suddenly have. And
Yeah.
it was a learning curve of, oh, I should probably be doing homework with this time rather than, sitting there on my phone.
We've all been there where it's like, oh,
Yeah.
what am I doing now?
What is this? The saying, like, being bored is the devil's playground,
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
something like
something
that.
like that.
Basically, having too much time on your hands
Yeah.
and not knowing what to do
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
Well, it's a life change, right? You're going from living at home, and all of a sudden you've got this, and you've got all kinds of freedoms. It's not just time, but it's just like, what do I do? I've always been, it's always been structured, is what I'm hearing here. It's like I had a structured life,
Yeah.
and now it's this first taste of adulting. And am I doing the right thing with my time? And what's important about this is, over time, we all know that time is really precious. And I think that's what that is like. And so how do we make sure that we're using it wisely? So that's kind of what I read there, but what do you guys think?
I was just going to say, it makes me think about how I too will question whether I'm doing something in the right manner, in the right order, in the right, like, it's hard to define and live by what your priorities are. So that's why I think mentorship is so important. So you can bounce it off of somebody like, here's what I think, but can you tell me if I'm doing this right?
Mhm.
If I'm adulting correctly?
Leon, you had to manage time as becoming a rocket scientist. Like, how did that look?
Painful. Do you know, I would reframe what he's saying a little bit, because kind of what I heard was he was at home and his time was structured probably by his parents,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of the people we talk to, whether they maybe realize it or not, end up getting a lot of mentorship off of their parents. Even just little bits about, the kids you should or shouldn't socialize with, you should do your homework, it's important kind of thing, right? And then you go to uni, and if you're not thinking about the mentors, which universities aren't, you're not as a student, you don't know to, you've never had to. It was kind of built into often the parenting of the community. Now you don't have anyone that's saying, do your homework, do
Right.
these things, get off your phone, right?
Mhm.
And as a teenager, that was just annoying nonsense. But I think we
Did you miss
overlook
it? Yeah.
that kind of, I remember being annoyed by it, being
Yeah.
nagged by my parents to go do things, but it's a form of mentorship. And I think one of the areas that universities have really gone a little astray is thinking that actually isn't one of the most important parts of it. even though there are literally science papers that say that it is. But so I don't know. That's kind of interesting what I heard there.
As I was listening to this, Tomas, I was thinking about what you said is how you kind of dove into your own world, learning all the tech things, teaching yourself. And we were talking about, we shared an article the other day about how gaming is that way, where it just sucks you in and you just like spend all your time doing that. So that is an issue. What do you think about that?
Thinking about that, I mean, back when I worked at Cisco, we had 15-year-old hackers that were working with us, like
So great.
coming into the office and learning, how do we do this? How do we, like, things that were because of exactly that mindset. You look at Sam Altman's background, same thing. He played around with technology in 12, 13, 15 years old and learned, really tinkering with stuff. But you have to, in those kinds of environments, you really have to have a setting by which you can do that. I was lucky, very lucky that my dad cared enough to do, build a desk and leverage a computer. I think I got pieces from computers elsewhere. I don't remember it ever buying me one, but like they gave me some ability to learn and grow that was not structured.
Right.
And it did cause me to like miss things and not, I mean, I was incentivized probably because I had decent grades and all, but I don't remember being that structured at that
Right.
time. And good and bad. It's, my mom was a teacher, so she had some positive encouragement on self-esteem and all that, but they were at odds a lot about how they should raise. So because of their friction, we didn't get like it was kind
Super
of
structured.
Yeah, it was
Oh.
up in the air, right? Until they
Mhm.
said you got to get a job. You can't be an entrepreneur, that kind of stuff. Like, but I, as far as what he said, I see things in my time frame and I see things in today's time frame. I don't know.
Mhm.
The advice I have is probably different from my era,
Sure. Yeah.
but I mean, there's some applicable, but it's obviously today's, characteristics are a lot different.
Mhm.
But I would say that, like, depending on, you come from a structured environment and all of a sudden you find yourself in school and like, wow, there's, distractions and drugs and drinking and people, all those things that, if your parents did a good job and helped you learn how to make decisions, how to make wise choices, all that stuff. I think that is your own autonomous, structured system, right? But unfortunately, like especially in first gen, we don't have that often,
Mhm.
right? And the challenge goes with the decision making, right? And how does someone acquire that decision making? Well, that's acquired through mentors, and that's acquired through finding individuals to help augment the need. Not that every 20-year-old or 18-year-old is that sophisticated and know how to do all this stuff,
Right.
but the more they can get access to that earlier,
Mhm.
the better they can round out their, orchestrated capabilities to achieve greatness, right? In
Yeah.
whatever they do.
Yeah. One thing that it reminded me of is something that you say, Leon, and we've chatted about often is it's okay not to have your mind occupied or have this super structured thing, because often your best ideas aren't when you're thinking about the ideas. It's out on a walk. It's out when you're just pondering.
Yeah. In fact, I'll take this opportunity to add yet another tally mark. Where do you have your best ideas, Thomas? Those ones that really change the
yeah.
world, not where do you have those ideas?
So I walk a lot. I have a bum knee, so I can no longer run, but ride my
Walking
bike,
comes up a lot.
walking,
Riding a bike comes up. Yeah.
totally. And it's the place for me to like disconnect. I'm not dealing with anything. Endorphins are starting to run, like all that. And I'm naturally right brain, high creative type too. That's the other thing. Not if you're not naturally if you don't naturally have that you may not bubble up that level. I'm off the charts. Even to this day, I thought of 3 things just yesterday that could change the world. I'm like, I'm not going to chase them, right? So instead, I'm going to look for them to buy. No.
You need a filter. You need
To
a filter.
invest
Yeah,
in.
yeah, right.
I've asked about 60 people at this point, and not one living soul has ever said at my desk. I've had all kinds of answers. Some you'd expect, some that you wouldn't.
Yeah.
Not a single living soul is like, at my desk at work is where I have the ideas that saved the company, launched a product, turned into not a single human being. And to something you said earlier that I want to touch back on, right? Mentorship is this platform for unstructured growth, and the unstructured nature of that is so important.
Yeah.
And to the clip we just listened to, you need that unstructured time, because too much structure is just really confining. It concerns you with immediate
Amen.
problems that are often so
Amen.
irrelevant.
Right.
Oh, that thing next week, that quarterly report, they don't actually matter.
Right.
And Steve Jobs and all these other people the people that built HP were not worried about quarterly earnings reports,
Right.
But then you have to know how to navigate that unstructured time. And I think that's where the mentorship comes in, because it is
Yeah.
they'll help you see how to navigate unstructured time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think to add to that is just give yourself permission to understand that there's just different phases in life. It's okay not to be structured, and give yourself that time to reflect. And then if you are concerned, pick up a book, and time management is actually a whole course and things of that nature. If it's that much of a concern. But to echo what you said, meditation and permission to just like be. It's a new phase. Live it, accept it, and then it'll be okay. So just one of those things.
Can I say one other thing?
Yeah,
On that
say it.
topic?
Okay.
And well, but on the point, really the other place is like when I'm out and about, like we were at the lake a couple of days ago, and I immediately saw a problem that needed to be solved, and I share concepts. I made one person who was an investor say, "Wow, let's figure out how to do that." Another person said, "Eh." But the point is like I'm always on problem solving mode,
Right.
always, and I link it to commercializing, like how do we turn that into an opportunity, right? But I just don't have the cycles and the time to do all that, So like I'm an idea generator, but with a real problem solving need, right?
Mhm.
Mostly around technology.
Very cool.
Are you able to like give those ideas to people that could execute?
Early on in my life, I was very like very confidential about it,
Sure.
but now I am, except I feel like it has to be trusted to
Right.
take somewhere, not just randomly giving that, because
The thing that we found over time is it takes a lot more than just the idea to execute. You have to have that passion. And so if the person's not passionate, they're not going to do anything with the idea.
Right.
So a lot of these ideas, unless you find a partner and you're involved and you can lead with some passion, it's going to be, it's one of those things that may not be worthwhile. All right, let's move on to our next one. I want to jump to this one because I thought this was interesting. Samarth.
So is there anybody that you look up to that you would want to ask about for after college once you get into your career?
Well, I guess the one big guy out there is Sam Altman. Um, I don't know. I guess one question I would have is why does he think AI might be so pervasive, and why is he using AI in every technology that he uses? I know I heard of some global coin that he's doing that uses AI to scan your retina or something. Why does he think AI needs to be integrated into it?
All right, we're getting deep. Sam Altman.
Sam Altman.
I put this in there because you said you wanted it. So let's let you start with that.
Very relevant. Well, machine learning and AI and such is not new. It's based off of perceptron, right back from the 40s. I mean, it's just a structured way of governing like clusters of binary data, right? And moving, governing. So the concept's been out almost 100 years, right? And Alan Turing, and I mean, way back in the 50s and such, and it's something that has just year over year has slowly evolved. Think about the movie The Terminator, 40 years ago. 40 years ago.
And I still don't have Skynet.
Be careful. You might soon. I'll get to that. We'll have to take that one after. But and The Matrix 25 years ago. The movie Her, if you remember that, with Scarlett Johansson, 12 or 13.
Sam Altman apparently definitely remembers that movie.
Right.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. Right. I'm getting to a point. And even Ex Machina, there's so many others, right? So the concepts have been projecting out there, right? As far as him, I mean, he could have said Elon Musk. He
Right.
could have said, Michael Dell. He could have just said anyone that was flavor of the month, right? Kind of a thing. And but I think it's important what he's done and what he's doing, because it started as a research project. It started more in a nonprofit setting, right? And then he got all these investors, and they figured out, okay, let's change this and turn this for a profit. He has no equity in OpenAI, so he doesn't own a cent of OpenAI. He makes money off of it, but he's made a lot of his money off of other startups that he started 10, 12 years ago. And he's been in like an early investor in Stripe and, Tesla, I don't know, all these other companies. So he's done pretty well, right? But the work that he does and how they're doing it is so important right now, because we're getting to a point where all those decades of AI enlightenment and growth and iteration are coming together now. And he's like at the top of that mountain, right? He's like, he's
The
right
base of it right now.
yeah, the cutting edge of the cutting edge. And what he does and how he does it, and all the investors are getting in, everyone wants their hands in it, are going to influence the future of our society, right? And it's, AI is, Skynet is probably 40, 80 years away from even being phase one, right? Like, to have that kind of neural network and intelligence doing stuff for the AI to me right now, and what Sam Altman said, it's augmenting a human experience. Basically, it's an augmenting capability. So everything a human does and the workflow they do, AI is going to help them, whether it's driving, whether it's cooking, living, whatever it is. It's just going to help do more with less, in a way, right?
Be
but
more efficient.
right, more efficient, but to the point that you're wearing something that it's like walking you through, oh, it's telling me how to move, and using neural network. And I mean, I don't know if you saw J-Lo's recent Netflix movie that's on. It's
Yes,
yeah.
I watched that.
They put this it's basically a neural net that that syncs up to AI, and it's very valid technology in that movie, but they're projecting it 100 years out,
Right.
and it's like it's going to be a while to even get close to that because of the human interaction.
So his concerns were, I think you answered them, is like how much of that's going to influence jobs, and because that's a real question for a lot of Gen Z at the moment. They're studying. One of the biggest issues is like you're studying, and one of our other mentors says here, you're studying for 4 years to get 8 years behind, because this is so, like, everything is moving so much faster than what they're learning. And so the valid concern is, do I get out and immediately then start reskilling? Because there's so much change in the world.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what I'm hearing from that question.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have?
Well, I mean, as he says, right, why does AI have to be in everything? And I will say, to some extent, Altman is an AI visionary. He had a vision for what AI wants to be, and he's now got the world's biggest mallet, and he's gone in search of nails, right? So to some extent, he's like, great, I built this thing, I had this vision for it, I created the thing I wanted to do, which was a conversational AI that at the time everyone said was outrageously impossible, at least 40, 80 years out kind of stuff, and then boom. And so I'd imagine that, as you said, really what he wants to do is plug AI into parts of the world where he sees there's incredible synergy. And I think that does generate, to some extent, a lot of fear, because there's a lot of people that look at the status quo and they say, well, the status quo is about to massively change because of AI, and I'm probably going to be less well off at the end of it. So the lower end of jobs will be automated out of existence. There's now one cashier and 12 self-checkouts, because apparently I'm willing to do my own. I am willing to do my own checkout service. Right. And you're starting to see them in fast food joints. So it is, I mean, like, automation to a lesser or greater extent is getting rid of some of those lower ones. And so, I mean, I do see some of the fear and opportunity that a lot of these students see in AI and other sort of not just AI, of course.
But back to kind of where your passion was, innovation, right? So one of the things that we're working on with the Founding Up is, how do we take these tools and empower an entire generation to just become better innovators? Because the one thing that AI is not, AI itself is not an innovator. It needs that human component that comes up with the ideas, and then you can use AI to become more efficient in execution.
It's only as good as what you feed it.
Exactly. And so, so to kind of speak to some of those fears is like, embrace it and figure out how you can create the next best thing, and how you can, I think there's article out on the quest for the $1 billion company that, we'll see how long that takes, but how long will it take for a single person to create $1 billion company through use of AI? And so that's kind of a cool thing to imagine, not having to have all these people, but able to do it yourself and have that much help with the AI. So,
I mean, the change is coming. You have to look for positive ways to bring it into the world, because someone will bring it negatively. I mean, it is at the end of the just a technology. It's a hammer that can be used to build or destroy. And I think,
Right.
people are very worried, but it's coming anyway. So why not embrace it, and why not build it positively into your community?
Think of the Jetsons, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
They were futuristic, but they got food. It just served it to them, right? There was AI behind that, right? Like, but they lived and did their thing. They flew around in their car. It was a fun show.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I look at it in those terms.
For the Gen Zs listening to us, you can go on YouTube and look up reference
Right.
to the Jetsons.
A lot of
We are all
references.
dating
Oh my God.
ourselves.
Let's jump to our. I wanted to get to this one. I thought this was an interesting, because we're just talking about mentorship in general, because I feel like the show's all about mentorship and this and that, but sometimes, you go out there and you wonder if people really know what a mentor is. A mentor does, and so let's look at this one, Christian.
Do you have a mentor that you run things by as you make life decisions, like going to college or choosing your major to be biology?
A mentor. I haven't had a proper mentor since elementary school, actually. Uh, there's not many people I run it by, especially not the academic stuff. I'm actually a first generation college student.
Wow, good for you, Christian. That's great.
Recent memory, the people I would run it by would be friends of mine who were more academically inclined.
So what I see there is, opportunity, right? Opportunity to learn what a mentor can do. And then the other thing I think about, because I've got a 20-year-old daughter that looks similar age, and these youth live through COVID, right? Their high school years, everything else, it was COVID, and that allowed them to be more kind of spend a lot more time by themselves and things of that nature. So some of the things that that previous generations or previous individuals can now have that more community, this generation is kind of maybe not had as much. And so it's a good opportunity to talk about why mentorship and what a mentorship is and what you can look for in a mentor. I think that's something we haven't discussed, is what do you look for in a mentor? Because he seemed to be a little bit taken back by mentor. I haven't had one since I was in 5. So thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. Mentorship's an odd thing. And I think back to some of the comments you made earlier. If you don't know to look for it, if you're raised with the concept of mentorship, then you know to go looking for those mentors. And also, you typically understand that, did you just sit in a talk from someone who seems reasonably important? You can actually just walk up to them and be like, hey,
Yeah.
can we grab a coffee?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you don't walk up to someone and ask if they'll marry you. You don't walk up to someone and ask if they'll mentor you, but you can probably go for a coffee with them and see if you get on. And I think it's a problem. The education system is becoming increasingly standardized, so that we can, heaven forbid that that HR cannot compare 2 resumes side by side, right, quickly and easily. And so we threw out, in some senses, all of the humanity, all of the mentorship, everything that kind of made education special in favor of that standardization. And that means that no mentorship is really, there's no time for mentorship. Teachers can't mentor anyone. They've got standardized tests they got to get the kids ready for. And that's what I heard when he said that. I heard that not that he couldn't identify those mentors, but in fact, he just didn't see that they were there.
Right.
And I don't know, that made me a bit sad, candidly.
Yeah, the opportunity, because and I think it's important, and the work obviously that we're doing through the podcast and through the company that we're building, it's bringing that to light, because as we've talked before, there's just a structured society, and then there's permission to be unstructured, and that's the beauty of mentorship. Is one of our other mentors that was on the show said it's kind of like going up to the top of the mountains, looking down on the city, and instead of being in the city, you can see the much bigger playing field. And so I think that
Which is another thing he said, later. We may watch it, but that he wants to ask a mentor.
Yeah, I think we'll
Okay,
get to
we'll
that next.
watch
So let's
Spoilers.
Whoa.
slow
But I
your
do-
don't ask her about the latest movie because she'll tell you all about it. But my go ahead. I'm sorry.
No,
I didn't
no.
mean to catch
I
you
was
off.
just going to ask Leon if you remember ultimately what he was trying to study. Like he majored in biology because he wanted to do
I want to do
biochem,
biomed.
biomedical.
An interesting thing that you and I have had a conversation about is a lot of people are used to these dating sites and swipe left, right, and you're kind of looking for things that attract you in someone else as a partner. And you could take the same kind of reasoning, like what attracts you about an individual on a professional level? Like, what is it about their life? Can you see your future in what they're doing? And you could use that as a gauge, just like maybe I want to meet this person or I'll have coffee with this individual and learn more about how they got there. And one of the things that I know personally, years and years ago, I was always afraid to ask someone who was successful because I wasn't there. I was just like, who am I? I had this confidence thing that I wasn't concerned about. And their time is precious. Their time is valuable. And I don't want to bug them. And I think that's a myth that we need to dispel, because what I have found now that 250, 300
Now that you're wildly successful.
now that I've interviewed like 300 people and I learned from them is that every one of them wants to give back. They want
Yeah,
to,
they do.
They do. It's this, I want to share my experience because I want to help. Society is all about helping the next person. And so whatever imagination you have about what they would say, I've never had one say no to a coffee, right? Let's schedule, it might be 6 months out, but they're willing to make that happen. So they're willing to find and carve time in their schedule to spend time with you and just give you some pointers, because we're all going to the same place in this. I mean, we're in a circle doing the same. I mean, this rotating Earth is doing this,
Right.
not leaving this place, at least not until you get spaceships going up. But point is that helping each other is a big thing. So that's what I took of it. What did you think?
I'll try not to spend too much time because this is a real important topic to me personally. So golly, over 20 years ago, or around 20 or so years ago, I've been involved in so many mentor programs starting from that time. Discovery Engineering, that was part of IBM way back in the day. I was a mentor for Round Rock Independent School District, their STARS program that would match me once a month to have lunch with a student, an at-risk student. And so way, way, way back then, I just knew that, and a lot of it was anecdotally, but a lot of it too was empirical, that at-risk kids had more needs and had more challenges, particularly gaps to fill. We're all talking about mentors, but a mentor could plug in that gap, right? And I knew from a lot of data and a lot of knowledge that that's where I needed to be plugged into more and more and more. I even became a mentor for the Seedling organization. Do you know about Seedling? The Seedling is an organization here in Austin, a nonprofit that matches mentors with kids in middle school and high school that have one or two parents who are incarcerated, right? And so I did, from 20 years ago to now, most of my giving and most of my time spent doing this work is with the most vulnerable, highest risk, most needed parts of society, not the most affluent, well off that have, not that they don't need help,
Right.
they need help,
Yeah.
but and you may have picked up on that last time we had breakfast. I was very adamant about those who have nothing and come from nothing that need even more help, right? Whatever color they are, the color has nothing to do with it, but like I just felt that that's where I needed to be plugged into, and I've learned a lot about myself in that space. But I, year over year, realized that I'm so glad that I landed on my right feet, the right way, the right direction. And I've just been growing from that and growing from others. And through the service and giving others, I've learned a lot about myself. So that, I don't know, to the point of mentoring, to answer the question, really, I can go into the how to get to a place where you know what kind of mentors you need, or post, like, I'm looking for mentors now, and start, I can do, it's like a pre and post in my mind. The pre side is really that environment you grow up in, and knowing how to make decisions, knowing how to ask, knowing how to understand. Like, I'll give you an example. Steve Jobs, even though he was adopted, he was raised in an amazing household and had such a comforting, giving, caring world that when he was a teenager or maybe 20 years old, he called, Bill Hewlett at HP to get an internship, right? At HP. And who does that at that age, right? No. But had it not been for the environment he grew up in, the care, the unstructured approach, he probably would have never known to go and do something like that.
Right.
So I'm an advocate for more knowledge, more awareness earlier on, so that kids like that can come into ACC or wherever they're at, knowing that, okay, I have 4 gaps. I need to fill these gaps. Like, having somebody help them transition. Now, once they're there, and if they don't have the knowledge or whatever in their post mentorship, getting folks like us to volunteer, to get involved, like your business, your startup, to plug in and help them immediately, quantitatively or qualitatively understand your mentorship, rubric is 20% full. You need to get to 100% full. And by doing that, connect with this person, connect with that, do this, those things are like, here's what we recommend to get there. And that's where your startup comes into play.
Yeah, very cool.
True.
All right, since I promised we'd do the what you mentioned, we'll go Christian part 2
Christian
is
part
our
two.
option.
Just if you've ever struggled with work-life balance. So, yeah, if you could ask a mentor a question about that, what would you ask them?
There's one thing that they could point me towards to focus my energy on, just to remove some of the burden of making the decision myself. Because from the outside looking in, things look a bit more cut and dry. And so they'd be able to make that decision quicker than I would, without the huss and fuss.
I thought it was so cool that video 1 is like, I don't have a mentor. I don't know why I need one. Then the second one, he's just so insightful and like, if you could tell me one thing to focus on, because there's so much noise, and we get that. I mean, especially in today's society with social media and all the other things, and just you should do this, and you should do this. There's just so much noise. What is the one thing that he gives? I thought that was a really great question that he asked. What are your thoughts on that? I look at Leon first, and he's like, I'm on the spot again.
Yeah, well, I think that's interesting, right? Because when I look back on my life, I was giving some mentorship to somebody. They were worried about their exams. They're like 16, right? High school exams, whatever. And I said, look, obviously study hard, try your best, etc. But you have to understand, if you fail, you can always take a year out. Or I think they were 18. They were going to university. That was it. And I said, if you fail, you can take a year out and just do more courses. And at 18, that would have felt absolutely catastrophic to me. It would have done, right? I felt like I was a complete failure, and what was the point? I should give up. And now at 37, I know it wouldn't have made an absolute bit of difference to my life at all. Taking 1 year out, I'd actually probably have learned a lot about who I was and what I wanted. I might have made a better choice. And my life would have been completely different, but I don't think it would have been worse, certainly, right? And so to his point about like being able to zoom out and then say, well, what actually matters in life? What do I focus on? I think about what you said. You're like, I was going to be CEO of Cisco. And then I realized my community was actually more important to me, and it's important, I think, because we tell everyone that go to uni, go to an Ivy League, get a whatever, 6-figure, 7-figure job. Inflation, man, made 6-figure job ain't that much anymore,
Yeah, right.
Get your 7-figure job, whatever it is, live this happy lifestyle, buy a boat. Whatever we're saying is this dream. And I actually don't think it's what most people want. Most people want to be comfortable. They want to have options, they want to be able to take care of themselves, their family, their community. But beyond that, actually, I think most people care much more about investing in their children or their community or teaching or like all these other things. And so, I would just, it's a great question. If he ever figures it out, I hope he lets me know, because it's really hard.
I think
really hard.
You nailed it. I mean, one of the things that part of why we're down this journey is one of, after 23 years in finance and talking to parents and their kids and trying to see where it was just what you said. It was easy to like save a bunch of money. It wasn't easy. And it took a lot of time to save a bunch of money and then shove a kid off to school. And I noticed in that hundreds of families that I helped, that I noticed that there was a disconnect between what a parent could teach their kid and what they wanted to learn, right? The parent is really great at one or two careers. That's what they've been at. But, the kid wants to become a rocket scientist. Like, unless your parents are rocket scientists, I got nothing for you. Go to school.
Not a
And
lot
so
of parents are influencers either, and that's quite a big one now for Gen Z.
right, right.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Can I imagine?
But it was this disconnect that I noticed. And as a financial planner, a financial person that helps people with finances, I was like, we just worked really hard for the last 10 years or 15 years and saved all this money for this family to send them off to college. And now there's not a whole lot of intention at that point of where they go and what they do.
Yeah.
So it almost went from it almost went from a Wall Street thing to a Vegas. It's like, go figure it out. And that's what it feels like to a lot of people. It's this gamble.
$100,000 roll of the
Exactly,
dice.
gamble. And you look at the numbers, and less than 30% of people actually go to uni actually follow through with what they learn as far as a career goes. And so all of that to say is back to your point, is intention, right? So the whole focus is, how can we have more intention going in? And what I'm hearing him say is, tell me what to focus on. And I think it's that deeper question, which is, well, what's in you? Like, what is, like, think about, and what, like, you discovered innovation really early in tech really early, and that was what was driving you. I think every one of us has a gift, but we got to spend quiet time. We've got to spend time in reflection to figure out, what is it I really want to do, and then spend time doing that and see where it goes.
I think to your point as well, and I mean, relative to everything we're talking about here, in the United States, anyhow, and I'm sure the UK, we're a capitalistic society, and we have that measurement of that focus, and get your education, get your MBA,
Right.
become an executive, run a company at Wall Street. That's still alive and present. And I think what's happened is a lot more affluent, capable individuals that have generational wealth push that harder because they have resources that are easier to roll through and help.
And you've seen it work.
Yeah,
You've
absolutely.
seen that roadmap play out
Absolutely.
for the people around you.
Private school, whatever. I mean, I have friends that one of my, definitely won't mention names, one of my friends that they've done
come on,
very
Thomas.
well. And
It's Dan, isn't it?
no.
Not saying very well.
The wife of my friend said that, their son, they're applying for colleges and they're worried that they don't have an adversity story.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, I never thought about that. Right. Never looked at it like that. I'm all adversity all day. Right. And she was too and all, but it's like they've done so well, and but then we got into the point about enabling them for success. Right. And learning on the way. It doesn't mean your world stops and says, I have to have adversity. You can still move forward. But even if you look at, Jensen from, the CEO of NVIDIA. I don't know if you've heard his story or not, about
I haven't, no.
wishing he did the commencement speech, or he did a speech with a group of Stanford students. And he says, I wish everyone in this studio, unfortunately, most people in here probably have not faced the type of adversity you need to face in the world. But my biggest message to everyone here is, I wish you a generous amount of adversity in your life to overcome, to get to the place you need to get to.
Wow.
And he did it from his angle in a way that, cleaning dishes and sweeping and, I mean, so I know I've steered further away from the question, but what was the question? I'm so sorry.
If the
How do
mentor
you
could help them-
focus?
yeah, what do you focus on?
Yeah. So, so my answer to that, really, it wasn't one, it was two-prong: amplify the signal and reduce the noise. And what I mean by that is more goals, more intentional things to focus on, and let go of the rest. And I have this conversation with my brother still to this day, but it's literally another thing we talked about. Like, I knew what I wanted to do in high school. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I had 40 ideas.
Mhm.
I knew no one. I had no money. We had no wealth. It was just like, what am I wasting my time thinking like this for? I might as well just go, push a broom. Like, I mean, literally, it was so discouraging. But like, in that environment, had someone out there said, let's hone in on your skills and your talents and what you're good at. Because I did a pendulum swing. I went to engineering and I went to corporate executive work, and I, learned PMPs, Black Belt, Six Sigma. I did amazing things, McKinsey level work, right? And the corporate America. And it's like, I wasted a lot of time because I should have been doing these other things. So part of the fund and part of the work that I'm doing on is I am, investing and focusing on innovators and those who is like where I should have been all along, right? And either through startups or, having resources and learning that people like me and my background and our heritage and lineage typically don't have doctors as, I mean, it's starting to happen now, which is great. And those resources are out there, but I feel like I need to be part of that equation to close that gap.
Yeah.
But I'm part of the solution to help those individuals learn sooner and hone in sooner on what they're good at. I just so happen to be on the venture and technology side, but there's others on academics and medical and nursing or whatever that is, right? They're out there. And I'm just one piece of like 40 pieces, right? Like
Reducing noise is big. I know we talked about this yesterday. And I also think about daughter, 20 years old. She's like, when she gets her mind something, it's like, I'm gonna take all these classes and all these hours, and it's like overload instantly.
Yeah.
Because there's this desire just to be someone else, like, and as fast as it's this immediate gratification, and it just doesn't work that way. It's almost like cut all that down, take one class, take two classes, and really focus and excel at it, and then just grow from there. So I think all of this advice today was great.
I just want to share one thing, a way to hone that I like to do. One way I like to do it is to look at a list of values and identify your top 5 values in your life and your worldview, and then look at what you're doing and make sure what you're doing is aligned with those values, because that will provide inner peace in my experience.
Totally. Yeah, that's awesome.
Great. And once again, I think, Natalie, you have the last word.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for being on this episode.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Thomas.
I think that was great.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for episode 5 of Uncharted, your Sidekick for Life podcast. We hope you enjoyed our chat with Thomas Miranda as we explored the world of tech innovation and community service. It's amazing to hear how Thomas went from his high school tech ventures to making a significant impact in Silicon Valley. Remember, mentorship and innovation are key components to shaping our futures. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with your friends. We appreciate all the contributions from our Gen Z interviews. Thank you. Join us next time for more inspiring stories and keep exploring the uncharted.